Ohayou gozaimasu. We're finally back to learning how to write hiragana characters. Today, I'll be teaching you how to write the hiragana sa through so, and also the dakuten or chonchon versions of it. I will be teaching you how to write the characters correctly and also show you common mistakes that my students make to help you avoid them. Make sure to practice writing them daily so that you can learn them quickly. Speaking of quickly, when practicing to write your hiragana characters, make sure that you take your time when writing each one. Okay, let's start with hiragana sa. Hiragana sa. First stroke. Second stroke. Third stroke. Just like hiragana ki, there are two ways of writing this character. For this character, there's a little space here, and this is where it used to connect. So this is the original way to write hiragana sa. As you can see, they both look very similar to hiragana ki, except that it only has one line going through the top. Just like with hiragana ki, you can use either one of these. The example on the right, where it's connected in the bottom, is more of the printed text version. So if you open up a textbook and you see a hiragana sa, if you see some hiragana online, you'll see the character on the right more commonly than you do the character on the left. But when handwriting, the left side is becoming more common to use, but you can choose to use either one. For hiragana sa, this bottom portion here, make sure that it doesn't exceed this line here. And as you can see here, it goes up at an angle. And this second stroke, this one goes down at an angle to the right. Now for the incorrect way of writing hiragana sa. If you write the hiragana sa where the top part is really angled up and it kind of looks like a letter X instead, this will be incorrect. Also, you'll notice that the bottom part is too straight and it's way too close to the other part of the hiragana, and it kind of just looks like a person just saw a little spider and he's jumping up scared. So it shouldn't look like someone's pulling their knees up. Same with the other way to write hiragana sa. If the spot here is way too close and it's way too narrow, this would be incorrect. This also looks like someone jumping up after they saw something run by their feet. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you write a hiragana sa and the bottom part is too wide and it's too big, then this would be incorrect. As you can see, it passes your first stroke. And for the last example, if the hook is way too long, this will be incorrect as well because it'll look really weird when you actually, put the little dots and connect it with the bottom. So it should be more clear and smooth. Alright, that was how to write hiragana sa. Next, we have hiragana shi. Before we start, if you notice, it is written as a shi with a S-H-I. In English, we pronounce she with a S-H-E, like if we were to say she is a student. But for this pronunciation, make sure that it is she with an I. And just a little note, there is no S-I pronunciation in Japanese. So there will never be a si, there will only be shi. Lucky for you, hiragana shi is very simple to write. Here is the first stroke, and that's it. It looks like a little fishing hook. For the bottom part, it's a little below the halfway mark. Make sure that the left side is relatively straight, but then it curves at the bottom. Okay, now for the incorrect way of writing hiragana shi. Even though it's a very simple character, there are a few ways that you can make it look a little weird. For the first example, if you write hiragana shi and the left side, or rather the top side, looks slanted at a diagonal, this will be incorrect. Another way is if you finish the hiragana and that last part is way above the halfway mark, this will be incorrect. It shouldn't look anything like a letter U. Also, if you write your hiragana shi and the bottom part is almost like a hook or like a little check mark and it's too narrow, it's too close to the left side, this will be considered incorrect. Here's another example where it kind of looks like a backwards check mark. And similar to the first example, if you write it as leaning to the right side or the left side, this will be incorrect because the first part should be going straight down. For the last example, if you write a hiragana shi and that little hook at the end is way too far, this will be considered incorrect. Alright, that was how to write hiragana shi. Next, we have hiragana su. First stroke, second stroke, and there you go. For hiragana su, this second stroke should be pretty straight on the right side. So it looks like it's going straight down, but it has a little loop at the end. And this bottom part just stops here. So it kind of aligns up with the little oval, the little circle on top. And again, the back part here is pretty straight. It's almost like a straight line going down, and it curves just a little bit. Okay, so for this example, as you can see, this part here curls in too much. So when you're writing your little oval, make sure that the backbone of that oval is straight. Here's another example. For the first stroke, it's going at an angle. So this would be incorrect. For your third example, for the last part here, as you can see, it's very long and it is curved. So even if the right side or the backbone of the hiragana su is straight, if you curl the bottom one too far up, this will be incorrect. For the fourth example, the backbone is straight, so that's good, but the bottom part kind of looks like a backwards letter L, so this would be incorrect. For the last example, I see some students doing this from time to time where they'll have the first stroke written correctly, and then for the second stroke, they kind of turn it into two different strokes where they have the line going down, and then they just attach a little oval or like a letter C on top of it. Of course, this would be incorrect. Here's another example where the little circle or the letter C doesn't pass through the backbone, but you can clearly tell that it was written with 3 strokes when it should just be 2. Okay, here are 2 examples where you have the backbone nice and straight and the bottom ends at a good place, but you notice that the circle is made too far up or too far low. So this will be incorrect. For hiragana su, the little circle or the little loop should be towards the center of the character. And that's how you write hiragana su. Next, we have Hiragana Set. First stroke, second stroke, third stroke. If you look at the 2 top parts here, they're almost the same length from each other, same as the parts on the left and the right. For the second stroke, you notice that it's still hovering from the bottom so it doesn't connect. For the third stroke, make sure that it's nice and curvy and that it isn't angled. Here, you notice for the first stroke, it's a little bit longer than the bottom of the third stroke. And I want to talk about this part here because for a printed text version, there's actually a hook there, and this is how it looks. Just like with hiragana ki and sa, you can write this character either way you want to, with the hook or without. Just make sure that the hook isn't too long. The more common way to write hiragana se is the way without the hook, but you can choose either one. Now for the incorrect way of writing hiragana set. Here's the first example with the hook, and as you can see, the hook is written a little bit exaggerated, it's a little too long, and this way of writing would be considered incorrect. Here's another example. The third stroke here is a little bit too close to the second stroke, so it should be spread out a little bit more. Here's a third example. For the third stroke here, you can see that the bottom kind of curves up at an angle, but it should be more straight. Alright, now for our last example. For the third stroke, it just kind of ends a little bit too early, and sometimes I see students writing it this way when they're rushing through their characters. So make sure that the third stroke, it goes across, at least past that second stroke. And that's how to write Hiragana Set. Next, we have Hiragana So. First stroke. And that's also the only stroke. Even though it looks like a bit of a complicated character, you only use one stroke to write this character. If you notice in the bottom here, it does not pass that little point on the right. And if you draw a straight line going down from the top of what looks like a letter Z, you notice that what looks like a letter C is just hitting or matching that point. So this is how it should be aligned. There's actually another way to write Hiragana So. So for this character, it kind of looks like a letter Y that's connected to a letter C. For this one, there are two strokes. So the same things apply for the bottom part of the letter C. It does not exceed the right. And if you draw a line straight through where that what looks like a letter Y is, it matches up with the letter C. So again, you can choose to write this either way you want to, whichever one is easier for you. Now for the incorrect way of writing Hiragana So. Here's the first example. So some students, they take the hiragana and they make it into a two-stroke character where they write a letter Z and then a C just kind of hanging off of it. Of course, this would be incorrect because it should be written with one stroke. For the second example, it's written with one stroke, but for that letter C looking part in the bottom, it's way too wide. For this third example, for that letter C looking part, it ends too far on the right. As we mentioned earlier, it should not pass this part. And that's how to write Hiragana So. And there you go, Hiragana Sa, Shi, Su, Se, So. Again, make sure that you practice these daily. Now I will teach you how to write and pronounce these characters with a dakuten or chonchon on it. Here we have Hiragana Sa, Shi, Su, Se, So. Okay, here we go. Hiragana Sa with a chonchon becomes Za. So the S turns into a Z. You can write it with the alternate way as well, with the chonchon. Next we have Hiragana Shi with a chonchon. Hiragana Shi will then become Hiragana Ji. So this one is with a J-I. The rest of the hiragana for Sa through So has a Z pronunciation, but this Hiragana Shi is special. And also there is no Z pronunciation with the Shi. It will not become Z. It will just be Ji. Next, Hiragana Su with a chonchon will become Zu. So the S sound turns into a Z sound. Next, Hiragana Set will turn into Z. Finally, we have Hiragana So. This will turn into Zo. So the S sound turns into a Z sound. And you can use the chonchon with the alternate way to write Hiragana So as well. They will both be So. Okay, so you have Hiragana Za, Ji, Zu, Ze, Zo. Oh, and also for Hiragana Se or Hiragana Ze, you can use the alternate way to write it with the chonchon. They'll both be pronounced Ze. And there you go. So all you do is add the little chonchon to them all and it turns the S sound to a Z sound with the exception of Shi, which becomes Ji. And there you go. Hiragana characters with the chonchon pronunciations are commonly used in the Japanese language, so make sure that you memorize them as well. For your assignment for this week, I'll be uploading the practice sheets for Sa through So, just like with A through O and Ka through Ko. So make sure that you practice writing each one 20 times. Okay, 頑張ってね。さよなら。